Hello and welcome back to the Business of Property. I'm your host, Cheryl Leong from Property Development Australia. So welcome and Happy New Year, everyone. I'm hoping that everyone has a fantastic 2022. Our special guest, who is no stranger to the business of property, Tony Meredith, is here today to help our community kick off an amazing year. And I know that a lot of you have, I'm sure, some goals and some targets for this year. And Tony is the man to help us with that. He is our resident business and property business coach, property life coach. But without further ado, let's have Tony on board. Tony Meredith, how are you today?
Cheryl, hello to you. Hello to your viewers.
Hello.
How are you going? Happy 2022.
Yes, I am very, very well. So I have to just let everyone know for some reason, my computer's doing all funny things. So I'm on my phone, so it looks a little bit different. So bear with me. I'm sure Rafiq has sorted out technology. But let's get down to business, Tony. I know the year for a lot of people, we've got the big C going around, probably causing a little bit of havoc for some people. I know that you're experiencing a little bit of that at the moment. So, but you know what? We're going to power through. And the whole intention here is to help our community of developers, property investors, just our community to really set into motion some firm plans for the new year. So, Tony, what are you finding with your student? I was going to say your clients or your students with goal setting for this new year. Has it been any different from previous years, or talk me through a little bit about what you're seeing? Is there a certain trend to the type, maybe even the types of goals?
Sure. So first I want to apologise to everybody. I do have COVID. I'm on the tail end of it. So if I cough and carry a little bit, sound a bit nasally, my sincere apologies. So look, this is a great time of year to be thinking about the year ahead. And one of the biggest problems that I see, Cheryl, is that people aren't clear enough on what they want. So for example, in property, people might say that, hey, I want to get into a deal, or I want to get a second property, or whatever it might be, and they're just not clear enough. And so one of the big opportunities is to get incredibly clear on what it is that you want. And when we talk about getting clear, we talk about the number of properties, the types of properties, the value of properties, the location of properties, so really get down to a granular level, because the whole process is around start with the end in mind. And so your question was around, what is it that my clients are doing? Is it any different this year to other years? Look, no, it's not. This is not a new process. This process has been around, long before me, and it's a case of first and foremost get incredibly clear on what it is that you want.
And talk me through that clarity piece, because we do have a large number of our community who are starting up in development. All right, and it may be that, and please feel free to share. I can't actually see what's in the chat, to be honest. So feel free to pop it in the comments below, wherever you're coming from, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Comments in the chat, and so Tony and I can talk to them as well. A lot of people are starting up in their journey, and if this is you, please share what your goals are, and they may not be really clear. Hi, Nolan, how are you? It's just you.
Nolan's saying he hasn't got the video. Nolan, I've got the video here. I'm looking at it. So, mate, I'm not sure what's going on. So, yes, it is you, Nolan. It's because I've got the video here.
It's not you, it's me. And so they might not have a clear idea of what that property looks like, because they're maybe still in the education startup phase, but they're like, by the end of the year, I want to have secured my first deal. So how do you work through that?
Sure. Well, start with the end in mind. So that whatever you do, you always want to start with the end in mind. Now, by the end, that doesn't need to be 5 years. It might be 12 months. It might be 6 months. For the purpose of tonight, let's talk about the end of this year being December 2022. So start with the end in mind. So what is that going to look like for you? So it might be that I want my first a small lot subdivision, a 1 into 2 in a particular suburb, within a particular budget, and even to the point of, you know, the type of frontage that I'm looking for, the area size that I'm looking for, the slope of the property, so on. It's the type of zoning. That's the level of specificity that we want to start with the end in mind. Now, the clearer that you can be on what it is that you want, well, the easier it is to know, am I on or off track? Am I actually working my way towards that? And so where a lot of new people go wrong is it's like, well, I want to get involved in property, right? And the reality is that property is about that wide, right? And so there's so many different types of properties. There's so many types of strategies. There's markets within markets within markets. And so if you want to get involved in property, then you need to really narrow your focus. And, you know, focus for me is an acronym. It stands for follow one course until successful. So get incredibly clear on what your goal is and then follow that particular course. You want to plot out the pathway and just stay very laser focused. You got me, Cheryl? No, Cheryl's frozen. I'll keep going. And so it's about get incredibly focused. But it's about, once you've started with the end in mind, then about plan in reverse. And so you always want to plan backwards. So again, we're using the example of December 2022. You're back, Cheryl. You were frozen there for a moment. But it's about working our way backwards. And so if December 22 is the end goal, then where do you need to be in September of 22? Where do you need to be in June of 22, March of 22, February of 22, January of 22, next week? You know, what are the things that you need to do? So you want to start to plot out in reverse. Now, in a lot of cases when you're starting out, you don't know or have all the specifics, right? So it's new to you, and we've all been there at some stage, and so you don't have all the specifics. So perhaps for you, one of the earlier things that you want to do is get educated, research, go to network meetings, right? So that's part of your, that's part of your plan, is to then upskill yourself with the things that you need to do. But you want to start with end in mind and then plan in reverse, and then want to take action then in a forwards direction.
And I'd like to sort of throw, not sort of spanner in the works, but just to
That's okay.
even before we do that, you know, how much do we need to spend a bit of that time on the mindset side of things? Because we might set goals, and, you know, I know that I've set goals and I've missed them, and I keep going, why does that happen? And I realize I was sabotaging myself in some way or form, and that there were things that were, whether it's limiting beliefs. I mean, we talked about these before, but how much of that to start off with do we really need to come down to the crux of it, to sort of go, okay, I'm creating these goals, but am I really setting myself up for success or failure?
Sure. So the step before creating the goals is understanding why you want to do it. So why do you want to get involved in property? I come across a lot of people who want to get involved in property for the wrong reasons. So they want to have all the glitz, the glamour, the riches, the wealth, the car, the bling bling, the big house. They want all these things. The problem with that is that it's down the road a bit, because property done well is a get rich slow scheme. And so it's down the road a bit. And so then between where the glitz, the glamour, the riches are and where you are is quite a distance. In some cases, it can be a number of years. And so it's a case of, but I want to be down there as quick as I can. And so they don't want to do the journey. And so that's why it's important to understand the why, because it is a journey. Your journey will be filled with ups and downs. I've been going at this since 2015, and my journey has had so many ups and so many downs, probably more downs than ups, to be brutally honest. And so it's a case of you need to be clearly understand why you're doing this in the first place, because that's what's going to get you going through those tough, challenging days. So really understand your why. You talked about mindset. Mindset's the bulk of it. So, you know, I have a formula, which is a 75, 15, 10. And the 10 is for knowledge. So 10%, if you imagine a pie chart, 10% is for knowledge. And so that is, you need to have some knowledge around property, whether it be property development, whether it be property renovation, whatever your strategy is going to be, you need some knowledge around that. You can't fly blind. But there's a Chinese proverb, which is, to know and not to do is to not know at all. So you can have some knowledge, but now you need to act on the knowledge that you have. So the 15% in the pie chart is to do with skills. right? So just because you know something, you may have done a course, you may have read it in a book, you may have watched a YouTube clip, you need to have some skills to be able to pull this off. It's a skill to be a successful property developer or property renovator. But 75% of your success is in between your ears. And it's the ability to keep going. So go back to what I said before, between where you are and where you want to be is a long, long journey. And everyone's journey is different. And so it's a long, long journey. And so you need to be incredibly patient, persistent, and consistent with what it is you're going to do, because so many people start off, you know, like I call it the January the 1st syndrome, where on the January the 1st, what do? We, regardless of, you know, it's not just property, it's everything, right? We're going to set all these big goals, we're going to do lose weight and climb mountains and whatever it might be. And of course, by this time in January, 3rd week, 4th week of January, we, hit a big heap. And we do that because we're interested, we're not committed. And if I could sum it up in one word, it's commitment. And it's commitment to your goal. So go back to the reason you talked about before. Perhaps in the past, Cheryl, when you haven't achieved your goal, it's because you haven't truly been committed. You thought you were committed, but you weren't truly committed. You weren't prepared to do all the things that were required. And I'm the same. I've missed so many goals in my life. And if I reflect back on, you know, why didn't I stay the course? And it was because I wasn't truly committed. You know, it may have got a little bit hard, and because it got a little bit hard, I thought, well, this is not for me, and I did something different, right? And so it's a case of recognizing that it's about commitment. It's about staying the course.
And what are some tips or tricks around staying committed?
Yeah.
What are the best ways to keep yourself on course?
Yeah, so break things. So firstly, understand your why. The next is to break things down into really bite-sized and reward. I call it reward every effort. So I talked before about starting with a mind, breaking that down 9 months, 6 months, etc. Every week, break down the things that you're going to do. Firstly, break down the amount of time that you have, because for a lot of people, it's a side hustle, and so I have a day job. Not everyone has the luxury of doing this in a full-time capacity. So I call this time mastery. A lot of people call it time management. I call it time mastery. And time mastery for me is two things. So the first is to understand how much time do I have. So if you've got a job, you might have a family, you might have other interests. You may have 10 hours, 12 hours, 5 hours, 15, 20 hours, whatever it might be, that you've got to allocate to this side hustle. The next thing then with your time is the quality aspect. How do I spend and squeeze as much juice as I possibly can out of whatever time that I have available? And so that's the key piece around the time mastery, is firstly understand how much time do I have, and then how do I maximize the time that I've got. And how you maximize the time that you've got is through preparation, is through figuring out all the things that I need to be doing in that particular week, on that particular day, to ensure that I'm not wasting a moment, particularly because if this is a side hustle, then you don't have a lot of time to start with. And so you want to make sure you're doing things that are as productive as you possibly can, not just being busy. And a good example of people who are busy is people who are trawling through realestate.com. I see a lot of people who do that. Now, I'm not saying that you can't find a deal on realestate.com. Yes, you can. There are certainly plenty of people that have. There are plenty of my clients that have. However, from a percentages point of view, realestate.com, in my view, is a reactive strategy to find deals. We want a proactive strategy to find deals. And so trawling through realestate.com is being busy, not being productive.
Yeah, so, and that's a really good point there about, you know, I'm being busy, but is what I'm doing really getting me closer to the actual goal? And is that the most effective use of my time, my time and energy as well? There's a comment here about reverse engineering. So you mentioned about, you know, I start with the end in mind. How do people work out what are the steps that are needed to get to this point? Because that in itself might be, I'm not really sure. I know I want this goal, but I'm not really sure what the steps are to get.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and the reality is that the further out we are with our planning, then the looser that things are, right? So things that we talk about in 9 months and 12 months time are a little bit looser, even though we want a level of specificity. Whereas when you talk about what do I need to do today, tomorrow, this week, next week, well, then now I've got a whole lot more detail, a whole lot more specificity. So for new people starting out, it'll be a guide, right? It'll be having a chat to different people and getting a bit of a feel for what would be a realistic time frame for me. I'd like to get involved in a 1 into 2 subdivision. What would be a rough realistic time frame for me? Start to take that into consideration through your networks, through this particular Facebook group, whatever it might be. But I said earlier that in the earlier part of your journey, allocate time for education. Allocate time. So education is important. 10% of your success is going to come from knowledge. You need to upskill yourself. You need to know what it is that you're doing. So spend time educating yourself. Now, education doesn't need to be formal education. It could be involve yourself in network communities. It could be, go to network meetings. It could be watch YouTube clips, read a lot of stuff online. I mean, the beautiful thing about 2022 is that the knowledge is at the end of our fingertips, quite frankly, and so it's not that hard to figure out, how it is that I need to do anything. And there's this amazing website, 𝐒𝐿E, google.com, that has all the that has all the answers, right? But for new people, spend a lot of time up front in upskilling yourself, because you won't have the knowledge, right? I didn't have the knowledge back when I first started, and so I absolutely get it. But you still need to have an idea of the types of time frames that you want to spend on certain things, and give yourself some, but also give yourself some time frames to challenge yourself. You don't want to have things just go off into the ether, because it may never happen.
Yeah, and again, another critical point there, because we find a lot of people who end up being forever students and not take action, because it may be that they're coming back to the mindset, I don't have enough knowledge and I'm too afraid to actually move forward. So I like the idea of actually giving yourself a bit of a timeline. So break it up. If you need to be able to break it up into 12 months, for example. And then I personally like to break things up into 3. So use every quarter to sort of say, okay, I'm going to spend this first quarter actually educating myself, and then the next quarter actually putting together my team, and within that quarter. So making sure that within your plan as well, because I've seen a lot of people doing education courses and watching the videos and all of that, but that time frame tends to just stretch out for weeks, months, and then years, and then at the end of it going, I still haven't secured a site.
Sure, but there's a reason why it stretches out, Cheryl. It's one word. It's called fear. That's it. And so people are fearful. They're fearful of, it's a whole range of reasons why people are fearful, but they're fear, and fear is linked to procrastination, and so they're avoiding something. And let's not beat around the bush. That's exactly what's happening. And so for people who are taking 2 years, 3 years, they're fearful of actually, taking that first step. It's one thing to know how to do things, right? And go back to the Chinese proverb that I've mentioned earlier. To know and not to do is to not know at all. So you might be the smartest person in the room, but if you choose to not act on it, then what does it really matter? And that's where you need to challenge yourself as to, why am I not taking that particular first step? But it's fear. I'd love for someone to challenge me and tell me it's something different, but it's not. It's I've been around, whether it be my own actions or inactions, and certainly coached hundreds and hundreds of people in this area, and it all boils down to procrastination.
Yeah, and I like to hear from the community here. Allow yourself to be a little bit vulnerable. I mean, like, is it fear that's stopping you from moving forward? And what sort of fears do you think you might have? And it could be things around, losing money, and that comes up very often, or is it the fear of the unknown, the fear of being judged possibly as well? I'd like to hear, sharing my experience. My fear was around not finding the right deal. That there were so many deals that come across, but I was afraid to move forward in fear that was not the perfect deal. Like I was looking for the perfect deal. Correct. So I kept sort of almost like then I would self-sabotage. I would
Mhm.
find reasons for it to not work, or
Mm.
whatever, like subconsciously I would sabotage the deal in
Mhm.
some way or form. But I've moved past that. I'm talking about sort of early on. It
Mm.
took me a
Mm.
while for me to really start in my own development journey. But it's
Mm.
important more so than anything else, like what you're saying is that awareness that there is a fear, that there is a mindset thing. So how do we move from fear to breaking through that fear and actually
Sure.
taking the
We'll
action?
go back to what you just said there around awareness. So there is a formula for change, and so whenever we want to change in anything, right, there's a formula, and it's a two-part formula. And the first part is self-awareness. So self-awareness plus action equals change. So in a lot of
Mm,
cases, we're not even aware, Cheryl. That's the reality. So we are
mm,
procrastinating, we are acting or not acting with fear, and we're not even aware that we're doing it. And so in the instances that you talk about, people might just think that I'm doing more research, right? Consciously, I'm researching more. That's the story they're telling themselves. But deep down in the subconscious, the reality is that there's a fear of something. And can I say that, in my view, the single biggest fear that I have come across, both me personally and both with my clients, is the fear of being criticised by other people. Excuse me.
mm,
That is the single biggest fear. The fear of money is big. The fear of uncertainty is big. But ultimately, it's the fear of being criticised by other people. So when I lose my money, then all the people are going to come out of the woodwork and say, I told you that you should never have done it. It wasn't for you.
mm,
You should have left it for somebody else, etc., etc. So that is the biggest fear, I believe. Doesn't mean that there's not others. There certainly is. But that's a big one. Look, the fear of success. That's a big one. Again, that links
mm.
back to the fear of being criticised by other people, because all of a sudden, when someone starts to have success, what happens is they now start to look a little bit different in amongst the herd, right? So
Yes.
as
Yeah.
a society, humans, we're a herd, right? We love to be around each other. We love to feel connected, and that's just who we are.
Mm,
And so let's not fight that. But when someone all of a sudden has some success, what happens, particularly here in Australia? What's the syndrome? It's called tall poppy syndrome, right? We want to
yeah.
bring that person back down when they start to show some success. So it's a case of that there's a fear of success, because people may feel that others are going to view them very differently when they start to have some success, or when they start to drive a nice car, or have a nice home by the beach, or whatever it might be. And as a result, what happens is there's a whole lot of self-sabotage going on.
Yeah. And what are some real practical tips that people can take away from today? Say if they've done a little bit of an exercise where they've identified, the
Mhm.
fears that they have and the things that are holding them back. We talk
Yep.
about limiting beliefs as well. So there's an awareness
Mhm.
piece here. So say
Mhm.
you've done this, done an exercise where you spend a little bit of time just writing down the things that you're fearful of, writing down the things that have stopped you
Mhm.
from being successful and
Yep.
and achieving your goals. The next
Mhm.
part of how do you break through those fears?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I do is I create what's called an empowering belief. So fear is a limiting belief, and so the only place we have limits is in our mind, and so fear is a limitation. And so we want to come up with
Mm,
something that's 180 degrees the opposite of the thing that's holding us back. So if I'm having a fear of failure, then I want to be loving success, right? And so you want to come up with something that's the
mm,
opposite of the thing that's holding you back, right? And you want to start to think about that,
yeah,
write that down, right? There's a process that you go through from a changing beliefs point of view, and one of them's around affirmation. So positive affirmations, the things that
yeah,
you say to yourself out aloud. Don't just think them, but actually say them to yourself out aloud. It's incredibly powerful. In fact, Mel Robbins has just written a new book called The High Five, and it's all around in the morning before you leave the bathroom, give yourself a physical high five up to the mirror, and it makes you feel good.
mm,
And so the same from an affirmations point of view. Say things out loud, but don't just say them, where there's no meaning. Actually, say them like they're true. Say it like it's happening for you. So I am a successful developer, or I do bring unlimited wealth into my world, or whatever your affirmation might be. And a wonderful resource for affirmations is a lady by the name of Louise Hay. Unfortunately, she's passed now, but she's got a lot of affirmations. So you may want to Google that up and find a few in there that resonate with you. That's one thing. The other thing is visualization. Our mind, your mind, everyone's mind can't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined. And so the clearer that we can be on our goal, the more that we want to light up and visualize the goal. But it's not just the end goal. And this is where people, we need to, in fact, I was just giving some commentary for some upcoming social media posts this afternoon to my team. And one of the things we're going to focus on is that it's not just about the end goal. Visualize yourself doing the things that you need to do. So, for example, between your end goal and where you are, there's a gazillion steps. There's a gazillion actions that need to happen. Visualize those. So you may have an issue with dealing with real estate agents, and it happens all the time. People struggle in dealing with real estate agents, you know, and if you want to find a property, you're going to need to get comfortable in dealing with real estate agents. And so visualize that. Visualize yourself on the phone. Visualize yourself handling the objections. Visualize yourself the things that you're going to say. Like, really go through a process where you're visualizing what it is that you want. So yes, you can visualize yourself driving around in your Lamborghini or whatever it is, if that's important to you, but also visualize you doing the journey, the things along the way, visualizing yourself negotiating or dealing with contractors or, you know, whatever it might be. So visualize affirmations, visualization. And what this does, it starts to get you to think as if it's really happening. That's the key. From a goals point of view, don't just come up with your goals in January, stick them in the top drawer and never look at them again. Read them every day, write them out every day. But it's not just the reading and the writing. The other thing that comes with the goals is we want to create a charge in our mind. And so that's how our mind stores things, right? It stores things based on all these charges that go on in our mind. And I'll give you a negative example of a charge. So, and this is for the audience, so ask yourselves this at home, but you know, do you know what you did specifically on September the 11th, 2001? Do you know, Cheryl? I'm not asking you to tell me what it is, but do you know specifically what it was you did? Yeah, absolutely.
I remember when I heard the news. So
yeah,
I was watching the news,
and you know specifically where you were. You know specifically what was going on. Why?
How
because
I felt.
How you felt, because there was a charge that went on in your mind, right? Now, so that was on the September the 11th, 2001. Do you know specifically what you were doing on August the 11th, 2001?
No idea.
No clue, right? Because we don't put a charge to that, because there's no emotion attached to that particular day. And so that's how our mind stores things. It's based on the emotion. It's filtering out things based on emotion. You go back into your mind and there'll be happy things that you remember, or unfortunately, if you're dwelling on missed opportunities, it's because you've attached all these charges to that negative emotion. The same happens in the forwards, right? So in front of you, the more that you can light up and create the positive charge on the things in front of you, when you get to that point, it's almost going to feel like deja vu. And so it's about getting clear on what you want, visualizing yourself doing those things, saying to yourself out loud all the wonderful things that you want to be doing, and then it doesn't feel unnatural because you've played it out over and over again. Look at sports people, you know. So sports people, before they go for a kick or hit the golf a club or the tennis racket or whatever it might be, they visualize themselves. They visualize themselves going through the stroke or the swing or whatever it might be. The same applies in life. It applies in business.
Yeah, and Tony, you probably have access to the chat and the comments there. Can you see them? Because I can't see them on my phone, and I know a few people have commented, which I really want to make sure that we address any questions or comments as well, because I see a lot of people sort of sharing some things about the fears, the procrastination.
All right, so let's have a look at this. So Margot says hello. Nolan has figured out the video, which is good. Luke Moroney saying bye. That's all he does.
Yeah, I figured that was you, Luke.
Yeah. So going for the goal. What else have we got here? Mers is saying Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. Great advice. Harry, thank you. Nolan can relate to that, Cheryl, so I'm not sure what point that was, but Nolan can
We're
certainly
just
relate.
relatable. We're just relatable.
Yeah, of course. Susie's saying Happy New Year to you and I. Happy New Year to you, Susie. Analysis paralysis is my Achilles heel. Yeah, okay. So analysis paralysis, and and Nolan and I have had plenty of chats on this. But again, it comes down to procrastination. Perhaps perfectionistic thinking is another thing that's linked to analysis paralysis. Wanting every single duck to line up in a particular row, whereas at different stages in the process, it's okay not to be exact. It's okay. It's okay at the start of the process not to be exact. It's not okay to not be pretty close to exact when you're doing the due diligence, right? Because we're talking about a lot of zeros here. But prior to that, it's okay if you're not quite 100%. And in fact, your analysis paralysis or your lack of speed will prevent you from securing the amazing deals. The people who are securing the amazing deals have systems and processes that it's all based around speed and stealth. So yes, so analysis paralysis.
Absolutely.
So certainly something that Noel and I have had plenty of chats on. Michael, fear of losing money on a deal, putting us behind on our property. It says plan, but I think you meant plan. 100%. And so, Michael, that's a case of what you focus on, you bring into your world, or what you think about, you become. And so when you think about the fear of losing money, then you're actually going to attract that into your world. And so I would strongly urge you to focus on the love of making money. So instead of fearing losing money, the love of making money, and how do I ensure that I can create success for myself? Now, there's nothing wrong with mitigating your risk, and it's important. Again, we've got a lot of zeros in property development, so you want to mitigate your risk. But once you've come up with some plans to mitigate your risk, it's almost like I want you to put an imaginary bow on it, and I want you to put that risk mitigation plan in your top drawer, and I want you to forget about it. And then I want you to focus on, what do I need to do to be successful? What do I need to do because we don't want to lose money. No one wants to lose money. So, but we tend to focus on the things that we don't want. And so it's a case of focusing on the things that I actually want, and what I want is a successful project or projects.
What does the other Tony say about where your focus grows, your energy flows?
The other Tony, correct. Tony Robbins, for those who aren't in on the joke, but you're right. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. And so, and the other thing is, what you think about expands. And so when you focus on losing money, all of a sudden it becomes big. And now all of a sudden you've got this big immovable object because you've spent all your time fixating on what it is that you don't want.
Yeah. So can I challenge everyone that's here? If you're, wherever you are on your journey, I like, and we all have this. We've got our fears, our limiting beliefs, and these negative thoughts about either ourselves or the circumstance or the situation. I'd love to challenge each of you to actually get a piece of paper and write them down. Because once you have that awareness of what's sort of stopping you and what's sort of hindering you from moving forward, then as Tony mentioned, what we want to do is then change these around and turn them into positive thoughts, positive affirmations, and so that it really changes our psyche. It's that unconscious sort of thought around that we give towards things, which then allows you to visualize and actually feel into what that success looks like and what that actually achieving that goal looks like. Who's up for that challenge?
I think it's wonderful, Cheryl. I think it's a wonderful idea, and more than happy to help people out as best I can. But look, the reality is that as humans, we're all born with only two fears. So we're born with a fear of falling and a fear of loud noises, and that's it. So as babies, it's proven that they are the two fears that we have. So every other fear that we have acquired through our lives, whether it be as kiddies, through teacher, parents, in the playground, through our adolescence, through past experiences, through negative things that have gone on. A good example for me personally is that I lost a lot of money through a failed business venture back in 2004 and 5, and that had every right to stop me and for a long time it did. And because, you know, for me, what I wasn't aware of is that my past doesn't need to equal my future. I used to think that my past was equaling my future. And so, you know, but until I started to learn about, you know, personal development and the power of the mind and all those wonderful things that I now preach around the countryside. But that's an example where I had a failure, a big failure, expensive failure, and for a long, long time it held me back.
And so we've talked a bit about the mindset side of things, priming ourselves for success, right? And now let's talk a little bit about actually doing the planning.
Yep.
Side of things, because there will be 101 ways to do things. Hear me? I see the little video turn. I'll just keep going. Hopefully,
keep going, Cheryl. Just keep going.
How do we actually plan out and focus our actions to a few things so that we're not overwhelmed by a whole lot of different scenarios or options or whatever that might be? How do we work that out?
Gotcha. So go back to what I said before around time mastery and around firstly understanding how much time you have. So you want to get clear on that. You want to track your time. That's the first thing. When you've figured out the time that you've got, actually get down to the point of how much time on each day and at what point of time in each day, and block it out in your calendar. So I use electronic calendars. For those who don't use an electronic calendar, use a diary. It doesn't really matter. It's all the same stuff. But allocate time to do particular things throughout the course of the week. Then with the time that you've allocated, let's say you've allocated a 90-minute block on tomorrow morning between 6 and 7:30. Specifically, what are you doing in that 90-minute block? And that's where it comes to. You really want to have that level of specificity in regards to your planning. The same applies to people who, say, want to get into running or walking. The best way to do it is to plan before the night before. Get your joggers out, get your active wear out, figure out where you're going to go, get everything that you need, get it all sorted out so that the moment you wake up and the alarm goes off, you're not searching for reasons not to do it. And so it's no different with your property journey. It's about how do I get myself as organised as I possibly can, so that when the alarm goes off and I sit at my desk at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd much rather be under my doona or whatever it is, that I've got a clear list of things that I need to be doing within that block. Now, from a to-do list point of view, my big advice there is actually put that into your calendar. So allocate time to do those things. Don't just have this list with 20 or 30 or 40 things. Actually put it into your calendar. So it might be a 30-minute block on Thursday afternoon from 4 to 4:30 that I want to do blah, 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 right? And so it might be around some property research. It might be to call the agents or whatever it is. But actually allocate the time. Now, here's the thing. That is the easiest part. Putting it into the calendar is the easiest part. What's the hardest part? Well, the hardest part is when 4 o'clock comes on Thursday afternoon, a little dingy comes up on your screen. It says, okay, it's time to call agents, and you find 101 reasons why you don't need to call an agent. That's the hardest part, right? And so that's then about the discipline, and it comes back to the why am I doing this and what am I doing? Why am I doing this and what am I doing? So there will come days when you don't feel like it. I can tell you there's going to be plenty of days when you don't feel like it. In fact, a great mate of mine who was put his comment on here earlier, Luke, he's done something like 1,400 7-kilometre runs in a row. He'll love me bringing this up, but I remember having a chat to him at his 1,000th, and I said to him, well, how many days of your 1,000 have you actually felt like getting up and running? And the answer was less than 10%. So, here's a guy who's run every day, and I'm sure the number is probably just the same now. He's run every day for the last 1,400, but yet only about 10% of those has actually felt like it. So for 90-odd% of those days, he hasn't. Why has he got up and done it? Well, because it's a whole lot more important to him. He's got a reason to get up and doing it, okay? And it's a longer-term reason. It means something to him, and that's why he gets up and does it. So that's an example around physicality, but the same applies from a property point of view. Is get clear on why do I want to do it. Get yourself organised, because again, the more time that you aren't organised and you sit down at your desk and you think, what am I going to do today? And half an hour goes by and let's have a look at the news and what's
Yeah.
going on with COVID, blah, blah, blah. Time's lost, right? And so get yourself incredibly organised.
Yeah, I can really relate to that. So I've got a particular morning routine. It's sort of my magic morning. So I break it
Yep,
up into sort of 15
yep,
minutes of deep breathing, and then, qigong and all sorts of things. But it's only sort of 15, 20 minutes and so on. So I can get it done in an hour. And I realize when I'm procrastinating and I might switch on Facebook or whatever,
mhm,
and really all of a sudden, sort of 10, 15 minutes, I've lost it.
yep.
And it really makes me think. I'm like, how many of these 10, 15-minute blocks am I wasting doing things that I shouldn't be doing when I've
Mm,
already scheduled things in?
mm,
It's so easy to sort of go, well, if you've got 10 of these 15-minute blocks, like, well, it's
mm.
150 minutes. What is that? How many
It's
hours is that?
2.5 hours.
Shit,
It's 2.5
sorry.
hours, right? Which is amazing. There's so much that you could be doing in 2.5 hours, and you're exactly right, Cheryl. And then what'll happen is someone will say, "Oh, Cheryl, can you do something?" And you'll say, "I've got no time." Right? And
Mm,
so you've got no time. But the
mm,
reality is we all have time, and it's not it's not a time issue. When people say they don't have time, it's not a time issue. It's a priority issue.
priority.
It's
Yeah.
not that important, because when things are important, you will find a
Mm,
way to make it happen. And think back to a
absolutely.
situation for all of us when there's a case when uh, you've been saying, I don't have any time, but something will come up and it's fun and it's with your friends, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I've just miraculously found, 2 or 3 hours. Well, again, it's not a time issue, it's a priority issue. It's about how important is this thing to you, which goes back to the connectedness with your property journey. How important is it to you to ensure that you do the thing that you need to do? And have you connected it up? This one thing that I'm doing today, if I don't do this one thing today, that may have a domino effect. And that may push me back a week, a fortnight, a month, because I don't do this thing today. And so it's about the discipline to do it, but it's
Yeah.
also having the connectedness of why it's important to do it.
Yeah, and I've been, for quite a few years now, I've been very conscious when someone says, um, oh, if I'm about to say I don't have time or I'm too busy, I
Mm,
stop myself, because I think we there might be another word, we
mm,
glamorize this busyness, and I'm too busy, I don't have
mm,
enough time, and
mm,
that is hiding behind excuses around, no, really, it's not about the time or the busyness. Yes,
mm,
we all have full lives,
mm.
but it's going, what are we spending that time on? That
It goes back
makes
to
that makes
procrastination.
that
It goes
difference.
back to fear. We're fearing something. There's a reason. So the way we're motivated as humans is we either avoid pain or we seek
Mm,
pleasure, and that's it at
mm,
the highest level. And so the reason why we do that is because our mind is designed to avoid pain. That's one of the
mm,
primary roles of
mm,
everybody's mind. It's designed to
mm.
avoid pain and get us through life, and as long as we can through life. And that's the idea. And
Yeah.
so when there's something that we're associating pain with. Now, this is not physical pain. This is mental anguish. This is mental pain,
Mm,
right? So,
mm,
take for example, when you've got if you've got the choice between I've got to go and do
mm,
some property research and grind it out versus going to watch my favourite show on Netflix. Well, I've got one that I'm associating pain
mm.
with, and I've got another one which I'm associating pleasure with. So I'm going to lean towards Netflix all the time, unless I start to change the meaning around the property research. And what I mean by that is then connecting it to something further down the road, something into the future, and making it a whole lot bigger. So then all of a sudden, I'm happy to let go of watching Netflix, because this thing of doing this particular task, that's far more important. And I can always watch Netflix later. In fact, I could watch Netflix as a reward if I wanted to,
Mm.
and to create that framework of positive reinforcement.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, there's a word there that really stood out, and and I use it often with whether it's my children or myself. We all have a choice, right? And
Mm,
so we've got to take ownership over that choice, because if it's a matter of, it's a prioritizing, whether you're prioritizing research or prioritizing your relaxation, it's important that we also have time for ourselves and we relax,
yes,
but we need to take ownership of that particular choice that we've made, and actually be present and in that moment, enjoy that relaxation, whatever that might be, but make sure that, you know, then you're making the choice that I'm going to really focus on it. Don't be sitting on the couch watching Netflix and feeling guilty about not doing the research, and vice versa. That's something that, I mean, I know that I'm more conscious of now about making conscious choices about how I'm spending my time. So there's not this
Gotcha.
guilt.
Gotcha.
There's not this guilt either, but I'm being present in that moment.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. Good on you, firstly, Cheryl, for having the awareness and making the change. I think that's wonderful. There's a Japanese saying, which is ichigo ichi. And ichigo ichi means treasure this moment, for it will never happen again. And so what that means is that you and I right now, on Tuesday the 18th, at 7:47 my time, 8:47 your time, we will never have this conversation again. We will have other conversations. We will have an enormous number of conversations, but we won't have this exact conversation. And so it's about taking that same philosophy into your personal life as well. It's about making sure that you're being present. And like you said, people who know that they should be doing something on the property but are over there watching the Netflix, they're not even present. The whole time they're in the net, they're watching the Netflix with a family, they're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to be back there, I need to be doing that research or whatever it is, versus I call it reward every effort. So reward every effort means use Netflix as a reward. Set yourself a target or a goal to do the research, whatever it is, and at the end of the research, go and have the reward, and go and have the reward and enjoy it and relax and embrace it. And ichigo ichi, treasure that particular moment because you've earned it, right? Versus a lot of people tend to get the reverse. They tend to take the reward first, which is the Netflix. And then what happens when it comes time to do the task? It's like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll worry about it in the morning, right? And of course, we just keep kicking that can further down the road versus task first, then reward. Task first, then reward. And create this framework of positive reinforcement. Just a couple of questions. Nolan's firing away. Yes, it's a priority issue. Totally agree. Self-awareness, yes. What's your why? Are you asking me what my why is, or is he saying it as a statement? So if it is about what's my why, so I've got 5 words, which is positively impacting people in business, and that's a little personal mantra of mine that I wake up to each and every day. I say it out aloud each and every day, and it gives me happiness. And I've been very blessed in my life, and I love the fact that I'm able to help people move forward. And by helping people move forward, then that really does fill me up. And I didn't discover this first up. I actually discovered property before coaching, but now now the roles are reversed, and coaching comes before property. But that's my why. That was a statement, but go for it. Thank you. Well, there you go, Nolan. I've shared that. And look, ultimately, for people's why, I'm going to suggest to a lot of us, when we drill down on our why, the key word would more than likely be happiness. Like having that choice is one, but happiness. You know, when you have the choice, you're happy. When you're doing the things you want to do, you're happy. A lot of people go through this life and they're not happy, and they're existing, right? And it's about how can I do the things that make me happy, and certainly, you know, getting to impact people's lives the way that I do impacts my own life, impacts my family's life, and it makes me very happy.
Yeah. And so, I mean, for those of you that would like to share, you know, have a think of your why and dive deep into that. You know, I know people might say, why, you know, what's my why? I want to create a better future for my children. And you know, is that deep enough, or you know, how do we dive really deep to the core of what's the why, and why property? Like why is property investing or property development your vehicle to get there as well? So I think
you're right, because
the core of it, we need to really start with the why.
Well, there's a lot of ways to make money, right? So you can go and get on some crypto, or you can do some shares, or you can do some foreign exchange, or you can sell some stuff on eBay, or whatever it might be. There's plenty of ways to make money. So why property in amongst all those ways, right? What is it about property? So to your point, Cheryl, a great phrase that people can ask to help them dig is for what purpose? Keep asking the why, or keep asking for what purpose. You think you've got your wife, for what purpose? For what purpose? For what purpose? And when you ask that question over and over and over again, then you'll dig very deep and you'll hit the thing that you're looking for. So I'll share a real life example. Coaching I did way back when I was starting, actually, probably 3 or 4 years ago. And it was a lady, and she wanted to lose some weight. And originally, when she started, it was all about looking aesthetically pleasing and having a nice shapely figure, etc. And when we started to dig into the why, for what purpose, for what purpose, for what purpose, what actually came out is that she wanted to lose the weight because she wanted to be stronger. And she wanted to be stronger because she lived in an apartment block in Sydney, and she wanted to be able to carry her young children out in the event of a fire. I think she lived on the 3rd or 4th floor or something along those lines. And it was interesting that the real reason that she wanted to lose some weight was that her paternalistic instincts were kicking in. And it's at that point that she really dug into the reason, why do I want to do the thing that I'm doing? Cheryl, I think we've lost you. I'm not sure if it was something I said, but that was fascinating to see that particular lady, really uncover what her why is, and then, brought out a lot of emotion for her, but it also ensured that she stayed the journey because she created that charge in her neurons, in her mind, and it meant that she stayed the course. So, okay. So, given it's just me, I'm not sure what's happened to Cheryl, but please feel free to ask me any questions that you want for this last 10 minutes or so. The other thing that I want to say, just whilst I'm waiting for some questions to come through, is the other piece in all of this, in success in property, is around...
It was the Tony
show for a moment.
It was a little bit. Well, no, look, I was just finishing off the story around the coaching client and the lady's paternalistic instinct. I was about to talk about the other element is consistency. So consistency. So don't just start something once. And particularly, I see this a lot, Cheryl, when it comes to deal finding. So there's a process to find deals in property, and it's a very clear and specific process. And the idea is to follow that process, but don't just follow it once, follow it and follow it and follow it and follow it and follow it again. And it's about keep going, keep going, keep going. So consistency is one of the big things. I think back as a child, there was a fable that we were read as kids, which was the tortoise and the hare. And the message there was slow and steady wins the race. And never has that been more evident, or more relevant now that I'm in the middle of my life. And slow and steady wins the race. And it's about that consistency. A lot of people... patience. And it's just because what happens is a lot of people will start off in their new journey filled with enthusiasm. They'll race out of the gates and they'll go at 100 miles an hour. And then what will happen is they'll hit a hurdle and something won't go right. And, and all of a sudden then the gloss will just start to come off, right? And the gloss starts to come off, and now we miss a day. And then we miss a second day. It's now very hard to get back on and rebuild the momentum because I've started to miss a day or two, and now the stories start to unravel inside my mind. So it's about consistency, and particularly when people start out. And I had this conversation with a client yesterday, and the other Tony, he talks about massive change, take massive action, whereas I'm not a big subscriber to that theory. Initially, and I want to, and we had a good debate, my client and I, yesterday. But the point is that when you want to start out, it's not about massive action at all. It's about take some action, and I call it +1. So wherever you are, do one more thing today than you did yesterday, and then do one more thing tomorrow than you did today. And if you take that approach with you each and every day, then you will methodically and sustainably create wonderful, wonderful change, introduce wonderful habits into what it is that you're doing. But when you go like a bull at a gate, initially, you burn out. And you said before, one of the other things is it's important to have the balance. Don't just become one-dimensional with this stuff. It's important. And I have been guilty of this many, many, many times in the past. So take it from someone who has got a lot of experience in this. It's a case of, look to have the balance, create more than one dimension in your life, be a well-rounded person, not just an amazing property developer.
Yeah, and why I want to bring that up because as you know, I've got business and I do development as well. My
Yeah.
why was to be able to create a level of freedom for myself and my family, and so that I could choose to spend time with my loved ones when I wanted to. But sometimes we lose track of that, right? So we need to remind ourselves of why we're doing this to create that level of freedom. But if we're finding ourselves being totally obsessed with working or deal finding or projects all the time, then we've lost sight of why we're doing this. So it's really important that we're, keeping in mind that level of balance to be able to go, okay, well, I'm with the family. I'm doing what I actually want to be able to do, because you want to also, what I found, live the life, that future life that you're trying to create. Because the more that you're actually doing that intentionally, the more that becomes a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about aligning to your values. Being congruent with your values, the things that are truest to you, the things that are important to you, and it's about doing it. It's very difficult if one of your values is around freedom, and then you're really battling away with taking yourself away, or family, and you take yourself away from your family. How you get around that is that again, this is about linking something into the future. It's a case of saying, well, look, in the short term, I am going to commit to doing this. I am going to give myself a time frame, and I am going to go at this for a period of time. But I'm also then, the whole idea is to give a little now, but then I'm going to get a whole lot more down the track. So if you're in a job and you want to get out of your job, and I had to do this as well, I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning for about 2 years. Now, I worked a very senior job. I traveled the country, but 4 o'clock in the morning, my kids would stay up after me. I'd be going to bed about 8:30 most nights to get up at 4 o'clock. But I did it for 2 years, and because that's what I needed to do. Now, I don't get up at 4 o'clock anymore. I don't need to, but it's a case of at that point in time for me, because I had a job and I wanted to be able to transition, with my property development stuff. Then that's the kind of stuff that I had to do to be able to make that transition. So it's a case of sometimes there's a short-term adjustment,
Agree.
knowing full well that there's this wonderful life that's just a little bit down the road.
Absolutely agree with that. Well, Tony, I'm going to give you a bit of a plug because I know that you work with a lot of our community, a lot of people in our community. You tell us a little bit about your coaching, because you do group coaching, you do one-on-one coaching. You're my coach in terms of sort of a business and life coach there, and I've seen huge changes in my life. How can you help those in our community who are sort of starting up, or not even starting up, with whatever point you are in your journey, but you're feeling that you need someone to help you keep you accountable, keep you focused, and actually drive you towards success for the new year? Tell us a little bit about what sort of programs you have.
Well, there's some free resources first and foremost. So I've got a couple of ebooks that I've written. One that just rewrote recently. It's all around goals. So it's about growing outstanding property business. So there's that. I'll put the link into the show notes once we're done. That's one resource.
Thank you.
Another free resource is my How to Deal with Real Estate Agent book, and that's one that I wrote a couple of years ago because I noticed that there was a lot of people who were incredibly nervous and very uncertain about dealing with real estate agents. My background in corporate land is in sales. A sales manager, ran big sales teams, commercial, etc. And so, dealing with people, having good, robust negotiations is, what I've built my career on. And I've never been a real estate agent, but there's a number of the skills that I had acquired through my career that had enabled me to have good conversations with real estate agents. And obviously I've got, I'm involved in development as well. I've got a large project that I'm in at the moment. So there's a couple of free resources. I do plenty of other stuff through Facebook, etc. So on all the various social media channels. But look, in regards to working with me specifically, I've got a group coaching program that I do where you get some individual time with me. You get plenty of group coaching. I've got a wonderful group of people, good cross-section of people. Some people starting out, some people very experienced. And I have a saying, it's not mine, but I've borrowed it, and that is that a rising tide lifts all boats. And so collectively, that group of people are kicking amazing goals, having wonderful success for themselves, finding amazing deals, because collectively we're all lifting each other up. So there's the group coaching side of things. So if that's of interest, please reach out to me again through the social media channels. The other is individual coaching. So I had a new client start with me yesterday. She's a very successful person in the property development space, and I'm looking forward to helping her with her goals, into 2022 and beyond. I've got plenty of other individuals who work with me as well. I'm based in Brisbane, but through Zoom, we're able to reach people. I've got clients in WA, Tassie, SA, in fact, all the states except Northern Territory. So if you're from Northern Territory, I'd love to have you come on board, but everywhere else we've got covered. And look, I do a lot of stuff, as I said, on social media as well, Cheryl, and all in the spirit of helping. But sorry, one other. Gosh, you should never have invited me to give myself a plug, Cheryl, because this could be the end of it. But the last one is the Property Unleashed. So Property Unleashed is an online virtual event. It started off as a virtual event last May in Sydney, and we had 40 odd people come along to that. I've done it virtually 2 times since. I think I'm probably going to have to do it virtually in the not too distant future, just given what's happening with COVID. But I'd love to get back to face-to-face. But look, again, connect with me in the next, probably the start of March. We'll look to do that in an online capacity. It's a one-day event, and it's all around mindset, but done in a property setting. And there's plenty of students who've been on here tonight, and plenty of comments and whatnot, who can vouch for it's an amazing action-packed day. And it's cheap as chips. It's cheap as chips, and it's all about just making sure that you're set up for success to go and achieve whatever it is you want in your property business.
I can vouch for that session. I was very fortunate to be part of the face-to-face event in Sydney at the beginning of last year, and it was fantastic. It was really again, helped with our goals, and I'm the type of person that really likes to always revisit why I'm doing things. Am I on the right track? What are the things that I need to change or tweak a bit to be actually make sure that I'm in line? So reach out to Tony. Like I said, he's no stranger to Property Development Australia community, and has helped a lot of the people that are in the community. So if you're feeling a little bit lost, you need some sort of guidance and someone to help you keep yourself accountable towards your goals, and help you really sort of plan out what that might look like. Hit Tony Meredith up, tonymeredithcoaching.com.au. Is there an AU?
That's it. It's an AU, or just send me a message through Facebook. We're on Facebook every day. We're doing something, so send me a message through Facebook. And as I said, I'll put the links in for those couple of free resources. And once you dive into those and get access to that, you will get you in line to get a few emails of what's happening and when upcoming events are, etc. And it's not just about all the events. There's just plenty of general advice we provide as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you for being here. I know that you're still recovering. Keep well, stay safe, get healthy.
Thank you.
And looking forward to having you here again. For everyone that's tuned in and has been a part of this session today, thank you. Everyone else in the community, have an amazing new year. I will see you next week on the Business of Property. We have a huge lineup of fantastic guests and a lot of stuff that's in the planning for Property Development Australia as well for 2022. So stay tuned. I shall see you. If you like to listen into any of our previous Business of Property sessions, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Till next time, we'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.